sister, they've been having more of this.
So it's a 365 camera, so it sees the entire room, and then it has individual up to 3 frames of shooting at people who are talking.
And
So,
it
like,
finds them.
yeah, if you want to come over here, I can show you.
What I was wondering is, we've got some boards that we're gonna be presenting. Is there any way for the audience that's on Zoom that they would be able to see those boards?
Maybe if you're standing like right there. So this has the 360 view,
Okay,
and then when it hears audio, it'll zoom into wherever the audio is coming from, like it is now because we're talking. But yeah, so I think we
so
there.
Oh, I need to turn my Zoom up. Maybe.
Must be church, it's getting close to time, everybody's getting
It is.
quiet.
Yeah, we're actually there. Okay, good morning. Today is October 18th, 2023. The time is now 9:02 a.m. I'm Kevin Day, Chair of the Custer County Board of Commissioners. I will call this meeting to order. If you do have cell phones, if you could please silence them at this time, I appreciate that. And if you would join us for the pledge invocation. Dave, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Address me, I'm sorry.
Yes, would you lead us?
No problem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. And join me for the invocation, please. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning and we thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to come together and to do the business of the county. We ask that as we meet together here, that you would be with us. We ask for your wisdom, for your direction. We ask that you would work with each of us here today and guide us in the direction that you want us to go. And we pray that you would work your will out. Father, we pray these things in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Kelly, could we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Day,
Present.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner F.
Present.
County Attorney Dan Slater.
Here.
And clerk to the board, like Council President.
Thank you. And if we could start with audience introductions, and since you sat in the front row, Dorothy, you get to start.
Dorothy Carson.
David Lutz.
James Gilbert.
Bruce Barr.
Lauren Green. Stephen Wilcox.
Joni Wilcox.
Matt Miles.
Bill Parker.
Nadine Peterson.
Joy Anderson.
Len Arrigo. Bob Centercroft. Okay, and if anybody goes to speak later, if you could identify yourself for the record, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, anyone have any amendments for the agenda?
None here. None.
Okay. We have no minutes today. Commissioner items, Commissioner Ep.
I think they've got the tar paper on the roof of that storage barn at the recycle center, so. And then tin's been ordered, so we're just waiting for Hirschberger to get that and put that on, so. I don't have a date yet on all that, but that's where we're at with that.
Okay.
Other than that, not much else.
Just a note on that, because that's that roof is part of the we've got a UTOP grant on that through DOLA, correct?
Correct.
And I believe that we got some money for the office roof on that as well, that we had two mini grants.
Oh, that wasn't a UTOP, sorry. That was a rebate thing through. I don't know, I'd have to look it up.
I will double check on that because COG is wanting their quarterly report on
Okay.
the two grants we got.
Okay.
And so I might get with you, I'll get all that information down so I can send some.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Commissioner Kanda.
Couple quick ones. Excuse me. Good news.
And it was the result of a citizen calling or writing a note about how we haven't had ABC for 3 months. We're probably not gonna get it now, are we? And that was luckily intercepted because she sent it to the KRD people also. And before I could respond, they came back and said, wait a minute, it's all handled, we're working it. We're getting the translators, we're working the process to get the contract started to put translators on both antennas. And we still got to work with the people who install it. They gave me a name before that, excuse me, of a company. They can't do it themselves. Their chief engineers are booked, but they got the people that actually install them for them all over the state. And that happens to be Thin Air Communications. And gave me the names of the guy to call. I called them and they do it. And so I'm going to ask them to come together with us at some point with a proposal on what it's going to cost to install the systems that we've got a price on already from Gates Air. That's 13,000 a piece for those and whatever they're going to want to have to work the installation. So we'll see how that progresses. Goal is to get it done by Christmas still. So we may meet it. Any questions on that, guys?
No.
No, and I, the only other thing I want to bring up is we've had a request, and I have this personal feeling as well. We talked about it. We can do this by acclamation or we can vote on it, but I want to do away with the 3-minute rule that's on our agenda items. And the reason for that is because we're small. I want to hear and understand the comments, whatever they are, from whoever they are. And we can control like we have in the past. And I would like to see that happen. And I think we need to, if you want to discuss that right now, we can agree to do it.
I would say I put that in because we did not have anything instituted and the meetings were getting out of hand. And I believe that if you can't say it in 3 minutes, then you need to probably trim what you're saying down. You should be able to speak your piece in 3 minutes and without it, the meetings, I don't think anyone would disagree that the meetings were getting quite out of hand. And so I would not support that at this time.
So they may have been getting out of hand a little bit there for a while. I think the group has gotten better, and 3 minutes limits probably a person who can't speak very well or who is not a good speech. 3 minutes takes, there's not a lot of time to get a thought across. I guess I'd like to propose that maybe that public comment there right after admin assistant items, we do away with that public comment because that seems odd to me that that's there. We should get through the business and then those who need to leave. I mean, we have a staff member here that really needs to get back to the business of the county. And if we have an hour or 2 hour long public comment because we have that many people in here giving public comment, then we're using her time inefficiently. So I'd like to see that public comment get removed completely. Not that we're not giving public comment at the end or giving the audience a moment to speak, but let's get through the business. Those who want to leave can leave. Those who want to speak can speak. And what more important thing do I have to do for this county than listen to the wants, wishes, needs, concerns of the citizens or of anybody else who may be here. So that's just my thought, just my opinion.
I agree that I think that's a good point. Because we're supposed to bring up and listen to items that are not on the agenda. That's fine. You can do that at the end of the meeting as well. And I think that's a good thing. Let's get rid of the 3 minute thing and move that.
As long as the discourse or the conversation, the discussions stays civil, maybe we do have to cut it off at 20 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever that may be, right? Or maybe it's, hey, you need to go get your thoughts put together in a more concise manner and then put it back on the agenda and come back to us. Maybe that's a better way of handling it than, I feel like if we just limit everybody to 3 minutes, then we're just rushing through it and we'd be, I don't know, maybe pretty soon nobody talks and I don't want that either.
We can agree that let's do away with the 3 minutes and let's move just have the one public comment at the end. Good enough.
But I understand
I do.
they probably were getting a little out of
We
hand
gotta
at
control it.
times and
But when it ends up to where you have deputies coming into your meeting, I would say they're getting out of hand.
So we will,
I agree.
and I personally will help you control it if it does. I mean, in the past, I've been sitting here quiet. I'm not gonna do that. We'll make sure that they stay civil.
right, and I second that. For
Fair
you,
enough.
so support you and keeping it civil.
Fair enough.
Okay, done.
Anything else, sir?
No, that's good enough. I'll bet I think of something else. Later.
Clarification, so there's no 3-minute limit on the tail end? Is that what y'all just agreed?
Other than for David,
Thank
Lutz.
you.
I'll clarify.
Other than
that.
you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm sure we go over 3, that's fine. I just want to make sure y'all agree.
There's a DL limit.
There you go, I understand.
For the record, Jimmy, the plumber's not here today.
Yeah.
Depends on our bandwidth, just like internet, depends on our bandwidth.
JPDL limit.
There you go. I just wanted to make sure, because y'all didn't really clarify if there was or not agreement on the back end.
That limit has been removed.
Okay, just double checking. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things I would mention is, and this came up last night as well. We did have that workshop for PIO, HR and our admin assistant that we held.
Excuse me, Kevin, could you speak up so we can hear you, please?
Yes, sir, I'll do my best. Sometimes I tend to get a little quiet. We did have that workshop on the admin assistant, PIO and HR. Did not come to a resolution yet on that. Did we reschedule?
No, we didn't, but we probably should.
We do need to do that. Was brought up last night during our meeting with the employees. Kelly's getting worked extra hard
Yeah.
because she's having to fill that role as well as her own. And so we do need to get that set up so that we can move forward and get that taken care of.
The custodial has been posted, so she's got one resume so far, so.
Okay.
So we're at with that.
So we need an HR, we need a BOCC admin description, we've got. We just need to get it posted, so we need to talk about that, release. What do you want to do it? You want to do it this afternoon, or three of us are together?
I think we would need to have a little longer notice
I'm
than that,
sorry,
so we
I'm not
got it
thinking.
posted.
We can have a special meeting to do that, or I think the sooner we do it, the better.
Absolutely.
And we may need a special meeting to align things and do other things. We could add it to it. So rather than a workshop, that way there's no questions. We can make a decision and do it. Okay.
Yeah, let's not wait till the 31st though.
No.
No. Do we have agendas on Thursday? What's your agendas on Thursday?
I'm busy. I can't do it.
EOC drill is what I've got,
But
but
we have a DA budget in
On Monday.
On Monday, we could meet in the morning.
Yeah.
And if you're available. And head out
23rd.
23rd.
9.
9 o'clock, get done fairly fast, I think,
I think that'll work.
or it could be the 25th if you want.
So 23rd.
Right? Special meeting to discuss.
Charter.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Welcome.
And then the other day I did meet gentleman from CDOT. We met here in Wetmore, as a matter of fact, and that was on the sidewalk project. We'll be addressing changes in the baseline contract here today. But that was a good meeting and kind of walking through the process moving forward and everything on that project. So and then this agreement and then the notice to proceed with baseline, and then they will set off what they call a kickoff meeting.
Okay.
Basically, it'll be between the engineering and CDOT and all their players there. And probably I will be in attendance at that, and then they will get things moving forward on that.
Okay.
And that's to be determined, the date on that. I'm getting quiet again, aren't I?
Speak
Okay.
up.
I could see it in the way the ears were
I got a
tilted.
second here
So, I'll try.
when you're done.
Go ahead, sir.
As promised, I have one more item. We did have a meeting with the airport board, all four officers. And we met with CDOT Aviation. That's what reminded me. And they did verify cash with both the CDOT people and the county that we have allocated for a new Jet A tank. And so that they have a contract bid that have been out and competed, and they're going with one bid was twice the other one, if you can imagine that. Guess what they went with? The one that was the low bid. So anyway, that's coming down, and the goal is to try to get it installed sometime in the spring, probably is what's gonna happen, based on procurement and shipping. So, good news for the year.
And Jet A fuel is helicopters, all helicopters use Jet A fuel now, right?
Very important from a safety point of view, and the guard coming in here to airlift people out of here that are.
All right, or search and rescue.
Search and rescue people.
Whatever, yeah.
And jet aircraft that have been starting to use this more. Matter of fact, there's a lease being proposed by a citizen that has just moved up here that they want to build a big hangar. And I think they've been working with Dorothy. I think maybe they brought it up. No, I guess not. They got the surveyor to survey the lot, and big hangar to put a big airplane. So that's good. There's more money.
Okay.
Do you have anything for us, sir? All right. Kelly.
No.
Get me an assistant,
Yeah.
or get yourselves an
It's staying.
assistant.
He's overworked and underpaid. He really is.
All right, so due to the decision a few minutes ago, we will not have public comment here unless, since it was already on the agenda, we would like to hold that during this meeting. Any objections if we just do the public comment at the end? Come in. Okay, I'm not seeing anything there, so. Any unfinished business, gentlemen?
Oh,
I don't think so.
Okay. New business. The consideration of the revisions to the baseline engineering contract. We approved a contract and sent that out to baseline. They made two revisions. You have both copies in your file that Kelly sent the other day. The changes were made under Roman numeral 7 and Roman numeral 16.
in the future, just, I just want to say this out.
Go ahead.
Public, I know I've related this to the three of you, but when we make a motion to approve a contract that hasn't yet presented to the other side, I think it'd be best if we include the language substantially as, you know, the word substantially, so that there can be changes that we want to come back to the board. As long as those changes don't change the substance of the contract. We don't have to come back and do this.
Which these revisions are, they don't make any
Yeah,
changes really to the contract, just the wording.
These don't change the scope of work or the amount of money involved or anything major.
Basically, in Roman numeral 7, basically, they changed the wording that's under professional responsibility. And they had changed it because we had, let me read what we had, I guess, and then that way we know what the change is. The original contract said Baseline shall faithfully perform the work required under this agreement in accordance with standards of care, skill, training, diligence, and judgment provided by highly competent professionals who perform work of a similar nature to the work described in this agreement. It is understood and agreed to by the parties that this status of Baseline and its employees, agents, and subconsultants shall be that of an independent contractor and not an employee. The new contract says Baseline services shall be performed in a manner consistent with the care and skill ordinarily exercised by professionals practicing in the same locality and specialty under the same or similar conditions, subject to the site conditions and time limits and financial and physical constraints imposed by a county. It is understood and agreed to by the parties that the status of Baseline and its employees, agents, and subconsultants shall be that of an independent contractor and not an employee. And then Roman numeral 15 has to do with the timing. The original contract, the parties agree that in the performance of the terms and requirements of this agreement by Baseline, that time is of the essence. New wording, Baseline will perform services with reasonable diligence and an expediency consistent with sound professional practices. Those are the two changes to the contract. So, to your point, if we had that verbiage in there, we could have went ahead and moved forward with it. So if you catch us not doing that in the future, be sure and speak up, sir.
Could you hear it? You heard it. I'm just teasing.
Oh,
You
no.
could hear it.
Yeah.
All right, so given that, I would move that we approve the agreement as amended by Baseline for the
second it.
engineering. Okay, I have a motion on the floor to approve the contract as amended by Baseline for the engineering. Discussion here at the table.
When did the original contract had a date on it? What's the date gonna be on this one and when do they start?
The date will be today's date when we approve it. We had the 3rd on the first one, because that's when we approved it, so. And as soon as they sign off on it, then,
They want to start, right?
yeah. So,
Remind everybody that the ADA compliant ramp coming into the courthouse and better sidewalks. They're gonna be a good thing. It's more safer.
anything else from here? Any public comment on this item? Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to approve the contract as amended by Baseline. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next item would be the consideration of
you know, it has nothing to do with that one, but it reminded me, Dan, there is a contract that the airport will have that's professionally put together by consulting firm Armstrong Engineering. And I'll ask, they will bring it by you once they get the contract, once we get the tank, so everything's installed and the requirements for that.
Okay.
You'll get it.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Okay, next item is in regards to this same item. Consideration of the notice to proceed with the Baseline Engineering Corporation. And so they would basically, they need us to approve them moving forward with the project to proceed. And did we have anything made up on that, Kelly?
No.
Okay,
Said they're,
so I might look to Dan here to see if we could make up if we vote here for a notice to proceed, just something for us to send to Baseline to that effect. Thank you, sir. So before they would proceed, they would also need that in place. Notice from us for them to proceed with the work.
Need a motion?
If you would like to make the motion, fine. If not, I will.
I'll make the motion to provide a notice to proceed with Baseline Engineering.
I'll say.
So I do have a motion on the floor to provide a notice to proceed to Baseline Engineering. Any further discussion here at the table? Anything on this item? I better check online, make sure. Okay, those in favor of providing a notice to proceed to Baseline Engineering signify by saying aye.
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 That motion carries. Next item will be the consideration of signing the Granicus proposal agreement and acceptance. Dorothy.
This was something we talked about on my monthly report. Granicus has offered to give us the platform to utilize for a reduced rate. It was originally $5,000 for the address identification for identifying short-term rentals in our county. They have reduced that price to $3,000. I have talked to Beth, who works with Granicus, and she's gonna work with us in trying to get the data that we need to upload into their system. And then we can proceed forward with that if that is a good contract. It's for 1 year. It sounds like we will continue to be able to get the reduced rate for that, which is, in my mind, a good deal. So,
Okay. I'll reiterate real quick for those that were behind you and could not hear.
sorry.
This contract with Granicus is for address identification, tracking of short-term rentals in the county. And the original price for this contract would have been $5,000. They have offered a $3,000 pricing on that. And have provided someone to work with you to make sure that all your information is uploaded properly.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen.
What's your plan if they misidentify a long-term rental as a short-term rental?
I think it would, first of all, it would be a written notification to the landowner. Sounds like they're gonna be able to provide contact information, could be a phone call. Normally it's in writing, just to say, this is what we've identified, please contact our office within 30 days. If they determine that, if I determine in speaking with the landowner that it is not a short-term rental, then we would eliminate that compliance issue, close it out.
Well, it wouldn't be a compliance issue if they're already the long-term rental, right? What I have problem with this software is if it misidentifies and it starts harassing citizens who aren't breaking the law, then what's our recourse?
Well, it's not,
Do-
that's not going to be the one. I would be the one, or a compliance officer, if you will, would be the one sending out the notifications. They don't have anything to do with that. It notifies us on through the system that, hey, this person, and it tells you that this rental has been, that they rented it from this day to this day, and this day to this day. It will show a pattern
Okay,
of the rental. So I understand your concern with that, but I think that we can catch it on our end before we take any action.
so Granicus isn't gonna go out to the individual. They're gonna just directly talk with you or
Correct.
communicate with you.
Correct.
Okay,
So yeah, I have a question because we haven't made a motion yet, but might want to explain, Granicus is a company that does this all in software, right? They're looking at ads in the area. What radius is it? Is there more? Because one of the things we've had in the past, we've gotten people in Crested Butte and other areas that it end up being advertised and it looks like it's a Custer County address.
And that's something that I would work with them on. It'll be based on the information that we give them, all of the addresses in Custer County. And then it basically monitors Airbnb, all of the major websites, 60+ websites. To say, hey, you have this particular address.
Every address in the county,
Yes,
all people.
it's only gonna identify those that are being rented off of those platforms, off of specific platforms.
And what's the span? Is it, what websites are they monitoring? One or two or a lot of what are,
Over 60,
there's 60 websites.
Correct.
of Short-term rental B&Bs that
Correct.
are advertising in our area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Booking.com, Airbnb, VRBO. There's a lot of them, and a lot of them I look at right now, which I don't do as much as I need to, but I look at those websites. I don't look at half of, even near what they have.
So I'm gonna pick up on Lucas's of all that. If you get 200 all of a sudden hits, how do we know that they're in an error? Are you gonna have to hit all 200 of them anyway? You go out and talk to them, right? Because you don't really know for sure. Is that,
It's gonna give me their contact information, so I would be able to contact them. In our resolution states we would do it via mail.
okay?
So
Yeah,
just send
that's
them-
why I want to get out in the open. There's a procedure, policy. You're not gonna go out and you're gonna send an email or a mail first and they get an answer back and
Yep.
let them, okay.
Give them 30 days to reply, and then we would follow up after that. But it's gonna identify that they've rented from this time to this time, and this time to this time. So, I mean, I understand the concern that maybe it's a long-term rental, but I think we can identify that. I'm comfortable that we can identify that on our end and not address long-term rentals opposed to just the short-term rentals.
and I would think that we would check our short-term rental permits and see if that address already identifies as such, or if it doesn't identify, so you're not already. What I don't want to do to the short-term people is bring on just another layer of bureaucracy and an overwhelming. We got just another tool to beat you with to make sure you stay in compliance. I just don't, I want to make sure we don't do that.
And that is not my intention. My intention is to follow the rules of the resolution and the way it's written. My intention is not to beat anybody up. Those who follow the process and do it correctly, and the planning commission can approve, I would send that list to Granicus, so those people are gonna be excluded out of any notification. So they've already got their permit number. We'll provide that information to Granicus. So it's not like I'm gonna go out and start sending letters out to people who have already been approved.
Okay, so you're gonna now send Granicus all of our short-term rentals that are permitted now, right?
Yes, sir.
What kind of personal information are they getting?
It's all permit number.
It's just a permit number.
Well, they'll get name and address off of, the data that we send them so that they can monitor the addresses here. That's no different than, you know, what we put on Q Public or what we have on, iWork right now.
Okay.
And if a long-term rental sublets something like a bedroom, that doesn't show up, that's legit, right?
I wouldn't imagine. So.
Yeah.
It's gonna go off of their advertisements. So with whatever website they're advertising on, that's what they're monitoring. And it's gonna show the amount of time in between there that they're actually renting.
And I imagine they've already given us an estimate of how many they think we have out there.
Yes, and honestly, I can't quote that number to you. It was been a while since I had that conversation with them. I want to say they said it was 80 plus, but I believe that they had so much added in there. We're right now at 51.
With the county,
Correct.
which doesn't include the 2 towns.
Right.
Okay.
I'm good.
On a different note. Do you have this money in your budget?
I do.
What is it, out of curiosity? Is it
$3,000.
$3,000, right?
Any other questions from
Is
the?
that per year?
Yes. And then this contract is only for 1 year. I thought that was best to start out that way, see if it gives us the benefit that we want.
Would entertain a motion.
What would you like to? What are you hoping gets accomplished by using this software?
Well, right now, I don't spend a lot of time looking at who's renting short-term rentals out there. We have a lot of interest. Every day we take 2 or 3 phone calls explaining what our process is. I know that there's several short-term rentals operating out there that are not permitted. And I think that's against what we have written in the resolution. I know that the planning commission is very pro getting a handle on this. I guess just to monitor and make sure that everybody's being compliant is what my ultimate goal is.
Or those that aren't in compliance become compliant?
Yes.
So you know of some, you said, have you already contacted those? Are they waiting for you to do something or what?
I've sent notices. That's about as far as I've gotten.
Which is what you would do if Granicus told you the same 2 people would do it, right?
Say that again.
It's the same process. You've already sent them a notice and we're waiting. But those 2 would probably show up on Granicus, right? Or whatever.
Correct.
I'm using the number 2. I don't know how many.
Correct.
Is there a big rush on, is there a lot of the illegal ones or you don't know?
I believe there are several. Can I give you a number on that, Bill? No. I can tell you that would definitely help in one situation where you guys have removed their permit or revoked their short-term rental permit. And it's going to give me that information stating or data showing that they actually did rent during these timeframes. Right now, it's just me pulling up random websites and looking at it. It's not like I'm trying to police people. I just want everybody to follow the correct procedure. Is it really fair to those who have gone through the correct procedure and the planning commission has gone out and reviewed the property and made sure that it's safe for the people that are renting it. Is it fair for those people who've done it correctly to allow everybody out, other people out there? And it's happening. There's more and more that are operating.
I'll make a motion that we accept this on a 1-year basis, because I'd like to hear what the public has to say about it.
I'll second that to hear the same thing.
Okay, so I do have a motion on the floor to approve this proposal, Granicus proposal. And it is for a term of 1 year. Any further discussion here at the table then?
Not until I hear.
Public comment.
Yes,
Sure.
Troy Anderson. I understand the dilemma that there might be a few, as she said, people out there that would be having short-term rentals that are not permitted. And that you'd like to know that everybody who's has a short-term rental has actually gone through the due process and is reporting appropriately. But the number she's giving is just a few, and it doesn't seem like the means justifies the ends in this situation. It feels like overreach, and it feels like intrusiveness into people's stuff. Usually short-term rentals, the neighborhoods know if it's somebody who's not gonna be there, they're gonna get reported because the neighborhoods don't want them there anyway. So I don't think this is something that we need to add another layer of bureaucracy to solve. Or finances.
Thank you. Matt,
It sounds like some computer company is now taking advantage of
Yes.
what I'm gonna call the cat and mouse game that goes on in Volusia County, Daytona Beach, Florida. The motel people do not want the VRBOs, and they got the city commission to make it illegal to do a VRBO. So then what happens is the people with the VRBOs will pop up and their website will be on the internet and long enough to get the thing running, and then they'll pop it back down. I guess the best way to me to evaluate this situation is we're gonna spend how much, $5,000 for a year or three? 3,000, and how, what is that going to, I mean, are we gonna grind that $3,000 out of a few people that we catch? What is the purpose of the thing? I agree with Ms. Anderson. If I've got somebody causing a problem at VRBO near me, I'm gonna take steps to get it shut down and stopped. So it just doesn't seem like, it seems like a techie kind of a thing, almost like these red light cameras that you got all over in Florida. I don't know if they have them here, but it's just, I would imagine that the company came up with some revenue analysis over how if you give me 3,000 and you can grind a little more than that out of these people that are doing this illegally. I would say, man, it's just another deal, high-tech deal. And if you really look at it, doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything but cost us money. That's all it does.
Makes them.
Makes them money. Yeah, they're running numbers. They got 200,000 counties and $3,000 a year. That's a pretty good revenue stream, or whatever.
And it makes it feel like yet another layer of government that's looking over their shoulder that just doesn't need to be there.
On the one hand,
I hear you online. I've got a couple online. I'll get to you in just a minute.
so on the one hand, right, so we've it's just like home businesses, right? That we've got codes, we've got policy, we've got procedure, we've got these laws that we're supposed to follow, and what do we have to have? We have to have bureaucracy to a certain degree, or some way, shape, or form of bringing the other people in compliance, so it's somewhat fair across the board. Every lawyer has to take the bar to participate. You don't just have lawyers out there, or maybe you do have some out there that aren't haven't passed the bar and so we try to keep it to somewhat even playing field. Those people that are running short-term rentals out there that aren't registered, are they collecting the tax, the 2% housing tax, and putting it into the county's tourism fund, or are they, well, obviously they're probably not. So it bothers me if it layers more bureaucracy upon those who have already gone through the steps, because it's an arduous task that we've already made, and I don't want to make it worse. I don't want to hamper them. I don't want to layer on more. And I'm not saying that you would do that personally as a county, as a system. I don't want to do that.
I bring up a point.
Sure.
One of the things that I see,
Speak up, please.
okay, one of the things that I do see is we have 2 or 3 major rental companies that are profiting off of the short-term rentals that are running illegally here. I know of 3. I don't monitor all of the sites, so that tells me there's probably a lot more out there. So if part of our rule is, in the resolution, is that if you're gonna run a short-term rental, you have a local rental agent that helps keep some of the problems of the short-term rentals that we have. It helps keep that down. But when there's an agency out of Colorado Springs, several of them, 3 of them that I know of, that are operating short-term rentals here in our county, then, you know, that's taking revenue out of our county. That could be one of our local property managers handling that if it was done properly. So
No, it's a good point.
They still have to comply with the requirements though of the county.
they're
And
not.
there's still a property tax on that rental property that exists. And if it's known, then that, just because they're making $1, it depends on how they're set up. I don't know. But it sounds like it's a very few. My other question though really is, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Absolutely.
And you gotta trust the citizens to do that until proven otherwise. And the way, and that worked in septic systems, it works in everything that we do as a county service. And so if there's a big plethora of this, and right now it sounds like you haven't had time to go look at a couple of them yet. You still need to do that. That's what I heard a minute ago. So there's 2 or 3 that you're gonna go do. I agree. I think from what I'm hearing, it is intrusive. It's another piece of, give me your address and name, and I won't do anything with it. I promise it's secure. And I worry about that also. And I worry about the perception that you get as a county doing that. I don't know. I haven't heard of any other counties having a major problem. Maybe there are. I think it's a bigger problem. And I know why the zoning did this with short-term rentals in Aspen. Is because you're on a septic system in the city and you got 1 hotel room rented and you got 20 college kids skiing. And that they couldn't find out except in any other way that somebody said, we got 20 guys coming out as 1 room. Because there's no software that's going to decide that that's a short-term rental. So, I mean, it's like on even the one that Matt used, it's popped up below down. People, it's always a way to beat the rap, but you want to make sure that the citizens do the job to help them police it. And when they feel like they're not being burden on, that they're helping somebody do something that helps them is what we want to see. And they want to have a nice neighborhood. They don't want a party going on that's illegal, and then they can find out that it's a better use. We get more coverage than a software would cover us, I believe, in the county. This side, and that's my feeling, just based on what I've read and seen and heard.
I'm gonna go online for a second here, and then I'll get back to the room. Charlie.
Yes, Charlie Ellison. I manage a number of properties, both in the county and in the towns that are short-term rentals. I've gone through the process. And I have a good reputation and relationship with the planning commission. And from a business perspective, I would love to see less competition. But from a philosophical question, I absolutely see this as Big Brother. It is, and I've seen the presentation of Granicus or whatever it is. The price of 5,000 or 3,000 is a loss leader. Once you get in it, you're going to be having a request to spend more and more money to make it workable. And in business, we find the 80-20 rule works all the time. If you want for $20, you can subscribe to AirDNA and you'll see all the listings on Airbnb and VRBO, which combined together have about 80% of the market share. You could talk about 60 sites, but there's specialized sites that are also on VRBO. You're not going to find, I don't think, a great number. I mean, the difference of what you'll be able to monitor to spend $20 a month versus 5,000 plus the add-ons is just I don't know. It's just not worth it.
Thank you, sir. Looks like Custer County landfill.
Yeah, it's Brian Lockhart. I'm the supervisor at Custer County Landfill. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead,
Okay,
Brian.
first of all, this is $3,000 that is already, she has this in her budget, correct?
Correct.
And it's coming out of the 2023 budget.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not really sure why these folks are so concerned about that when it's already in her budget. Plus, if it's 1 year trial, I don't understand why the three of you wouldn't help her do her job with the software. I could give her the trial run. I don't understand. You know, your three jobs is to help to finance the county, but also help the county employees do their job. If this is going to help Dorothy do her job, I don't understand what the problem is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I have one that's only coming up as an iPhone.
That's me, Lisa Frank, Custer County. I just have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is the point that we are monitoring all of these places so that we know that the short-term rentals are in compliance with the rules that were set down for safety, or that they have even signed up and are legitimate? That's my first question.
The address identification is going to point out those who have not followed the correct process. It's not
Okay,
just
so
identify people that have already gone through the process and doing it correctly.
okay, so what we're looking for is people who are using their property as short-term rental that have not come in and registered it as a short-term rental with the county, correct?
That's correct.
I kind of agree. I hear landfill, or Brian Lockhart, I think. I hear what he's saying to help you do your job. However, I think the citizens, if they knew there was a site they could go to and just question, if they could just send an email to you and say, hey, here's an address. I live here and I see people coming and going, Texas plates. They tell me that they're at a short-term rental. We talk, whatever, and they could find out, is this legit or not? And then point that out to you. I think it'd be a lot cheaper and you'd get the community involved, because there's a place near me. And I wonder, I see guys in pickup trucks driving all over the state land. And I wonder if they know what's going on, or if it's even a legal Airbnb. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, you had your hand up.
I'm good.
Okay. So if,
Go ahead, sir.
and then so if we identify, if you already have some identified, what's the next steps? You're gonna send them a letter? Are we gonna go to Dan Slater next and go, what are you companies that are from Colorado Springs? Listen, this isn't the right process. This isn't the process that the community has agreed upon.
That would be it would be sending a letter out to them. serving a cease and desist if they don't comply within 30 days, and then taking that to Dan. What this software is going to do is to allow me to more easily identify those who are violating the resolution. It's simply, that's what it boils down to. Right now, I do not have the time or the resources to sit there and look at websites to identify them.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, it's an industry that is growing, and we are a very popular destination for those types of things. And it's people from out of Custer County that are purchasing property just for that purpose.
And our permits process stops them from doing it. How do I put this?
Right now, we allow 8 new STRs in our county a year.
Okay.
We already have, I believe, 5 applications for next year. So we will fill up in our February and March hearings. It most likely will be full, with the exception of one zone, which we don't get a lot of activity out of.
Okay. Is there something that $3,000 could do you better, or that you would, that would be more beneficial in the long run if this doesn't work out, or if this doesn't happen to pan out?
In regards to short-term rentals
It, yeah, because if you do get calls, and you're getting calls, yeah, it's hard to, I mean, because let's be honest, you're gonna get calls from people that go, I think they're running a short-term rental, and you could be running your tail all over the place too, and I don't want that to happen either.
And that's, when I get those phone calls, then I have to search on websites. If I can identify it, then I address the issue. If not, it's difficult to address the issue. You know, there's a lot of websites they can advertise on.
But if they don't advertise, you're gonna go and see them anyway, because if that was somebody called it in.
I would most likely send them a letter. I'll tell you, 10% of the letters I send out, people reply back. It's a sad situation. I'm not here to make life difficult for anybody. I just trying to do my job, follow the resolution, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to take that out of it if we don't want to try to monitor it, because right now I can't.
And I want to get you the proper tools to do it yeah.
It seems to me like the whole issue is about how to catch them. That's what it's coming down to. What's the length you're willing to go to catch people who are not permitted to do business in the right way in the county? And that's really the bigger philosophical question you have to answer. If you want to give a trial for a year, give a trial to one of your callers that said, hey, set up a site that allows us to make a complaint or let you know about a concern in the neighborhood for short-term rentals. Then you've created a positive relationship with the government. It's a collaborative effort. If the government comes down and says, now we're going to put monitors in everybody's bedrooms because we want to know what everybody's doing in their bedrooms, you're going to create ill will against the government. And that's what, and then you're going to find people who may suspect that the short-term rental going, I'm not going to report them. I don't even like what the government's doing here in this case. They're being intrusive. So you've got an opportunity. A, identify the philosophical problem. And B, look at a way that it can be collaborative with the citizens so that we're helping you run this government instead of having you oversee us.
Matt, you had your hand up.
You know, this is just me, okay? But first of all, in my opinion, property tax in general is immoral. Period. It's a bunch of junk. I work all my life to buy my property and own it. I never own it. The government's always got their hand in it. So from my perspective, it's a bunch of BS. People have property. I believe in free enterprise. That's what this country is founded on. It's all a bunch of junk. People don't owe the government anything when it comes to property. They buy it. If they are able to rent it and make a couple of bucks, they ought to be able to do that, and the government should get their hands the hell out of it.
Matt,
What, this software, I don't quite understand what it does. It's not automatically generating letters to these people. is
No.
it?
No,
It isn't
The information is coming to this office.
correct.
And what I thought I heard is the office doesn't have an opportunity to follow up on, but maybe 10% or something of what they've heard about now.
no, what I was saying is that 10% of the letters that I send out, I get a response. And when somebody responds back to me, if I send out a compliance issue, then I work with them. We sit down, we schedule a meeting, and look, I'll give you an example. Somebody can't afford to get a septic. They're dumping their waste on the ground. I go out there, I address the issue, work with them. I've gone so far as to get a hold of contractors who will do something for that individual to help them get through whatever financial difficulty they're having to bring their property up to compliance. So it's not like I'm out there gonna throw people out of their home. I'm trying to work with them in any case possible. What I was saying is only 10% of the letters that I send out, do we ever get any reply back? And I see that in the property files where my predecessor had done the same thing. We don't have, it's like I'm spinning my wheels. And I'm trying to help. I'm not trying to police anybody. I'm just trying to do my job and follow the resolution that the planning commission set forth.
And how is that software going to address the 90% that never respond?
That's a whole different issue. That's an issue that I am.
Well, why wouldn't we work with that issue before we spend that money on that software? And let's get that 90% down to 10%. And then see, well, maybe we need to squeeze some more out with that software.
I feel like the software is putting up red light cameras everywhere. We know people are speeding. Not everybody is following the law and staying to the speed limit. But we only have so many patrol officers to patrol the road, so they can only catch the ones that they see. The rest of us who are speeding down the hill or whatever, go unscathed, go prosecuted, basically. That's just my feelings, I guess.
I will speak for a second here. It was mentioned about providing the input from the neighbors and the citizens. That is already taking place.
It does.
And what this is, and however you want to term that, whether it's big brother spying on you or not, this is allowing the planning and zoning department, it's giving them another tool to do the job that we have tasked them to do, which is to monitor these short-term rentals and to have them in compliance. And we have stated that whether you like the short-term rental rule and in the zoning regulations or not, that is what we have tasked this lady to do. And I believe that the ask she is giving to us is for a tool to help her better perform the duties we have tasked her with.
What is the cost?
$3,000.
No, what
Oh.
is the cost to all the other citizens? Because now you're adding more government. That's the price of freedom, that some of us get away with speeding. We get to speed every now and then. It's called the price of freedom because we don't want a government that's so restricted we can't leave our house without them knowing what we're doing. And you're going down a slippery slope of adding more and more government to solve one person's job. It doesn't make sense to me. You're saying the cost is dollars. The cost is more than that. The cost is freedom.
And then we need to get this moving along here pretty quick, but go ahead, sir.
Stephen Wilcox. I don't see how the county is gonna gain any money. Like in the case of Airbnb, they take the taxes out and they pay the county. So it's not a fact, of you guys losing money. If you wanna monitor, it, I think Charlie had a better idea, where you'll catch 80% of them. I think spending $3,000 to buy the software is a waste of the county's money.
One more time.
I haven't spoken yet.
Okay.
David Lutz. I think Charlie brought up a good point, by the way, on this. And others in this audience have brought up good points as well. And my concern is they're gonna nickel and dime us. I've been in business. I did insurance and investments for 25 years. I walked away. I resigned. Because compliance and regulations. Government. Putting their fingers in. Every year, just a little more. Little more. I had no issues. I had no ethics complaints. I had nothing. Clean record. But it just became overwhelming. The government is reaching into our pockets. Then I started a small business in Colorado Springs running a handyman company. The regulations on a small business in the state of Colorado, ridiculous if you run it by the books, and I was a franchise, so I had to run it by the books. Not that I wouldn't, but the taxing, the rules, it's just over the top. And if we continue to allow them, well, this one little thing, and I don't disagree with the $3,000, it's in our budget, sure. But, so they're currently dealing with 10% and missing 90%. Why don't we do a better job with the other people right now? And I think the community needs to speak up. I think this is too much intrusion on our freedom. And I just gave you two prime examples, not even related, that have just gotten way out of control. But you can keep talking about cars, you can talk about property. And I agree with Lynn back there, pardon me, you can acknowledge him. Our land should be our land, but now they're going to increase our property taxes, which is ludicrous. So I think there should be another way to address this than just buying a software system that I think in the end is going to cost us a lot more than we know. And it's just another failure of us to say, you know what, we don't want the government involved in our county. Thank you.
Okay. We need to move this along, but I got 3 online. I will allow those 3 and then I will call this question. iPhone, is that
Lisa Frank,
okay?
is that okay? Okay, I just wanted to say I agree with Charlie. I agree with Joy in saying, if we just keep allowing government, and I'm not saying our zoning officer, I'm talking about software companies that now know everything about us and are looking into us and reporting information back. There's no information that doesn't go into the big hive mind in Utah. So I say, let us citizens have a place where we've just got one page on Custer County government site with the listed addresses of properties that are in compliance. They're registered as an Airbnb and people coming and going from there. That's legit. And if we can see addresses where we live. If we don't see that address on there, we could give a little email or stop in and say hello to Dorothy and say, Dorothy, I don't see this address on there. I just thought I'd bring it to your attention. You're doing a great job. $3,000 could go a long way. We don't need all those people peeking into our business. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you. Charlie, you got your hand up again, sir?
Yes, I did. I want to hit the economic development, the strategic plan for the county. relies on tourism. It is a huge driver, and we may gradually be choking the neck of the golden goose that's driving that, and that's where people come to stay. There's a perfect storm happening between property tax increasing. I think I remember Bill, when we talked about this in workshops, when this whole STR permitting process came up, hey, don't worry, it's only $500 fee. That's now $1,000 fee. And now what will happen with the software? We're going to have to pay for that. My guess is because there's going to be add-ons to make it more workable. So next thing you do, it will be $1,500 fee, and then the hassle of it. And there are more and more people saying, well, maybe I don't want to be in this. And I think, and then now interest rates are going up. You're going to see, and there's very widely known Airbnb bust because it's not what it was a few years ago. So you could very well be, it's going to, all those factors are going to come in and fix the problem in terms of, well, that's enough. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, sir. And Jordan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the main core issue here is still that's unresolved is, should we even have Airbnb restrictions or regulations? I've been against any type of regulation for Airbnbs. Just I think people should be able to do with their property if they want to rent it out. I also think that we have 1,800 households and 4,400 units in all of Custer County. It's always been a secondary home. It was great that people could use their secondary homes to use a little bit more money, really help the businesses here. So I'm not against having any restrictions on Airbnb to begin with. But if you're going to keep that resolution, this is the tool that Dorothy needs to automate just keeping track of it. They post these things, they come down, she can just get a quick report and it solves all those issues a lot cheaper per hour, per man hour, than trying to hire somebody to monitor all of the websites or have her do it. So if you are going to keep this resolution and you're going to keep Airbnb regulations in place, this is an automated tool that's going to save the county a lot more money versus than trying to have Dorothy monitor these pages. She's trying to do her job, and I think this is a great tool for it. That said, if you're not going to have the resolution and you're going to open it up again, then that would be a different discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion on the floor to approve the Granicus proposal for Custer County in the sum of $3,000 for a yearly contract. Those in favor signify by saying aye. I will say aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
That motion fails.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Okay, next item. Last item on the agenda today is the discussion of the preliminary findings to date of the Citizens Committee.
Take a quick break, or how does that work?
We've been here long enough. I think we can take a quick break. That way, if you guys need any setup time, you can do that as well. Thank you for that, sir. All right, the time is now 10:24 a.m. and I will reconvene this Board of County Commissioner meeting. Lynn, looks like you're the one that's
I'm
first up here.
yeah.
All righty.
Good morning. I'm Len Arrigo. And I represent the citizens that had an issue with how we did the county manager. I want to step back and recap a little bit. If we go back a number of months, there was a petition to recall Tom Flower. And that petition was raised, and at the point it was raised, there were some people within the county. I think Kelly, you objected to it, and so you did what you could to stop it. And then a judge stepped in and said it wasn't certified. And it went on. In the meantime, a number of months passed. And Tom Flower stayed on. And I think after all said and done, it was very clear that the citizens wanted Tom Flower recalled. Okay. So now we come to August the 16th of 2023, when we're going to talk about creating the position of a county manager. And in the meeting, the citizens objected to it. They had a lot of issues with it, and they raised a lot of cane about it. And as it looked to the people, the commissioners looked at it and went in the left and out the right. Nobody wanted to hear it. So they went into an executive session. And in this executive session, what they talked about was how they're going to pass this county manager off to the public. They talked about, well, if we negotiated, I think the attorney said, well, you got to do that in public. There was no negotiation. Within this executive session, Tom Flower had a lot to say that was pretty derogatory. First of all, he thought that he was smarter than the public. He said the three commissioners knew more than the public did. I can tell you, I take issue with that. I think I know as much as Tom Flower. I think there's a lot of people in the room and a lot of people in the county that know every bit as much as Tom Flower. He called us names. He said we were Bill's billy goats. You're marching on to what they had to do. He called it a political stunt. He said he didn't represent he didn't work for the county employees. He just represented them. In a meeting a few weeks back, I made the mistake of attributing that remark to Kevin. And Kevin corrected me on the spot, went to the newspaper and had that retracted. But within the meeting, when Tom Flower's saying all this stuff, you were there, Kevin was there, and the attorney was there. And when Tom said this, nobody said a word. I have a word for that. That's called compliance. And when the county commissioners, whether it's Tom Flower by himself or you in aggregate, because you work in aggregate, when you think that you can just tell the public what you're going to do and they have to live with it, there's a term for that too. It's called Marxism. I'm not interested in Marxism, and neither is the public. So now we come to August 16th. The election was on August the 8th. There's 8 days. The election hadn't been ratified. Why hadn't it been ratified? We put that forth as a question, never got an answer. It could have easily been ratified. Within this executive session, Tom Flower said, you know, really good chance Braden's going to get hired and a week later he's going to be gone. Hey, that's politics. But we got a golden parachute for him. And that was planned. Okay? And we're just stating the facts as they are. So now we come in after the executive session, and all of a sudden there's a contract. Nobody's seen it. And by the way, surprise to the public, there's a golden parachute. 6 months pet. The public stood up and literally begged you. Please, please, please wait. Before this executive session, Bill said, I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to be part of it because it's illegal. He stood up and he said, man, I'm putting my foot down. Thank you, Bill. From the public, thank you, Bill. Okay, but you guys went ahead and did this. And not only did you take Braden and you didn't hire him, you appointed him. I'm not sure I know the difference, but that's what you called it, appointed him. This was on August. And then on August the 23rd, it was reversed and you gave him a check. And when you gave him a check, it was that very same day, that very same afternoon. There were no controls, no out of cycle procedures. A check was written. On that check, when it was printed, Kelly's signature is printed right on the check. Kevin, your signature was stamped. As soon as Bill found out, Bill went to the bank and he's been accused of forging Virginia Trujillo's signature. Bill did not forge anything. And anybody that says he did ought to gather their facts. He crossed out her name. He signed his name as a signature authority to stop the check. And then somebody within the county got a hold of the bank and said, no, go ahead, pay it. When it could have been stopped, $54,000 of the people's money went out when it didn't have to. And that check should have been reviewed. At a bare minimum, it should have been reviewed. I reviewed it. Do you realize that Braden was paid 1 day too much? He took Monday off as PTO. And in that day, he got paid the regular pay plus PTO. It was never caught. I caught it. It was real easy to catch. So we're going to present the facts of exactly what happened. Okay? So to begin with, here's something I want to show you. There was an audit that was conducted. In this audit, what you're going to see is 9 findings. 9 findings from this audit. 7 of those findings were over the past 2 years. 5 of the findings were over the past 3 years. And I'll go through these findings, but I want you to notice something. 2022 and 2021. Braden Wilson was hired April of 2021. At the end, when he left to become county manager, guess what? All of these items are outstanding. Not only that, Kevin, you were commissioner in charge of Braden. One would reasonably think, as you're going through the year, you know you have these findings. As the direct supervisor of Braden, you would have sat down with him. And he said, Braden, how you doing on this finding? How you doing on this one? And so on and so forth. That never happened. So not only did you appoint Braden county manager, and you gave him a position that he wasn't qualified to do, he wasn't even doing his job as director of HR and finance. Because if he had, these things would have been corrected, and they weren't. And if you had been doing your job, supervising him, they would have been corrected. But neither happened. Yet, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would still give him the job again. You do not regret giving Braden the county manager. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so let's go through these findings. The first one is implementation of GASB number 87 as it relates to leases. So here, the county was not able to compile the necessary information to complete the implementation. That's part of the new system implementation. The amount is unknown. When Braden presented himself to be county manager, he said he did a successful implementation. We're going to show you that he didn't successfully implement the system completely. The second item is balances between funds are not cleared and there's no procedures in place. They're not cleared in a timely manner. There's no procedures, no internal controls. When I picked up the check, I did a court request to get Braden severance pay. I asked for the procedures in place to do this out of cycle check. Kelly told me there was none. And when I asked her about it, she said, well, that's what the county manager was going to do. Kelly, as director of human resource and finance, he should have done that in that position. Why did he have to wait until he was a county manager? The next item is key accounts are not reconciled to the general ledger. And one of the key accounts was cash. That's really incredible. Okay. That I reconcile my checkbook every day. And here, you're not even reconciling your cash account to the general ledger. Now, in most systems that I've worked with, there's two ways to update the general ledger. One is if the software does it real time, but not all software works that way. Then you have to run a batch process to update it. If that's not occurring, that's probably somebody that doesn't know how to do the system. So there's probably system training issues there. Payroll records. Okay, payroll records are not reconciled to the general ledger, and that included tax returns filed. That was part of the new system implementation, and there were no formal procedures in place. The payroll records are not reconciled. Salaries and benefits are not being posted consistently to the general ledger, and variances from the payroll records to payroll tax returns are unresolved. There's no procedures in place. Here's another one. The gross margins on cost of fuel sales are not consistent. That could indicate that not all sales and cost of sales are captured correctly. Once again, that's probably a system training issue, but they're not reflected properly in the general ledger. Accounting functions for E911 calls. They're not being done in a timely manner either. The review and the reconciliation of those key accounts are not being reconciled in a timely manner, and there are no procedures in place. Posting of the public welfare fund. The posting of the general ledger transactions are not always posted consistently or correctly. For CFMS transactions, CFMS is the Colorado Financial Management System. The failure to identify and address those discrepancies between the county and the CFMS system affects the accuracy of reimbursements. There are no procedures in place. They need to be improved. You need to have internal controls. So those are they're either weak or they're not existing at all. The consistency in reporting expenditures. What they found here is that expenditures are not always being reported consistently. Okay, it could be things like travel going to Department A instead of Department B, or it could be just using the complete wrong account. Once again, there's no controls exist to ensure that the expenditures are recorded in the proper account. People don't really understand the chart of accounts. This is a training issue, as well as a procedure and an internal control issue. Then the maintaining of records and state and other grants. That's the last one. your different county departments all receive grant funding and they're responsible to maintain the documentation within each grant. What you would think there is you get grant A, grant B, grant C. You have a separate repository for each one of those. And every cost or revenue coming in and going out is recorded to that specific grant. That's not happening consistently at all. Once again, there's no procedures, there's no controls to ensure the departments have this. Okay, this is an issue. So when I look at this, I say, wow, how could you promote Braden and say he did his job? This is something he should have done as the director of finance, without question. And then the further question that I have is, do you have people in place now that can handle this? And what are you going to do? What's your plan to get them corrected? Because this is why you got a qualified audit. And those need to be corrected. They should have been corrected 2 years ago. For 7 of them. Okay. The other 2, you're already 10 months into the year. I'd venture to say you haven't even started correcting them. Would that be an accurate statement? Because I don't know that they are. Okay, so when we look at all of this, I don't see how in God's earth you can say making Braden Wilson county manager, and man, that's a powerful position. You know, it's a darn good thing that we were able to stop it when we did. Because if we didn't, and he was county manager today, what's going on today could not happen. Okay, so that's my part. So Joy, it's your turn.
Hi, Joy Anderson. Second part that we have looked at as a group, we've requested a couple executive sessions from you. First one was in August. Second one is June 29th, 2023. It's the latest executive session that we've requested. Today, we're just going to go over the overview, observations of it, and then Nadine will also be showing you some observations and some questions that we had coming out of that executive session. Now, each executive session is a tape, and we have to hire somebody who actually transcribes it, puts it down on paper. We've submitted it to each of you, asked for your corrections, have not received anything back. And so we've assumed that at this point, I think we received something back from Bill. I did not receive anything back from anybody else. We're assuming that this transcript is accurate. The board that I have up here right now shows 2 things. Everything in black is facts that are actually taken from the transcript. Everything in red is our conclusion or questions or observations. So let me just run through it. First of all, when you're in a regular session, you have to tell the public what you're going to do when you go into your executive session. The reason for this particular executive session, as it was stated, was that there was a personnel matter that needed to be discussed. From the recording that we discovered that the actual executive session resulted in Braden Wilson making a presentation to why he is the best person to hire as county manager. That doesn't exactly fall under personnel matter. But we're going to run through why Braden thinks he should be the county manager. His own words. Reason stated by Braden Wilson in support of number 2. He has been a reliable employee for the past 2 years. He has sought to gain as much knowledge as possible. And he currently performs most of the essential county manager job functions that he and the commissioners collaborated on back in November of 2022. The board that we just looked at already refutes that statement. But there's more. He states his key accomplishments as successful software conversion. Again, this audit does not support this statement. Lynn already went through these, but I'll just read it again. Key accounts were not reconciled on a timely basis. Most importantly, cash was not being reconciled to the general ledger successfully after the conversion to the new software. And then he also said, I think this actually, have all employees been adequately trained in using the software? That actually should be in red because that's a question we have. That's not something he stated in the transcript. Some conversations have indicated employees have not been adequately trained. We talked with Sheriff Smith. He said his department is struggling. They need more training. The audit itself, the comments and the findings in the audit itself also indicate there needs to be more training. Braden also said he created a new budget, something that we're experiencing right now, even without his presence. Question we have is, can a budget be created if the actual funds and fund balances are not even known from the previous years? How do you project forward when you don't even know what you did in the past? Braden, and also of note, was that in the 2023 budget, Braden had included $101,000 for the creation of a county manager position. Why is that important? I mean, it's great that it's in there, right? January of 2023, that was in the budget before we even knew we were going to have a county manager. One of Braden's arguments when he became county manager was that it wasn't going to cost the county much because of the grant and because the money was already in the budget. We find it very interesting that you would put money in the budget as the person who is going to be applying for the job and be the recipient of that budget money. Seems odd.
May I speak to that before you go on?
Sure.
During our budget hearings in 2022, there was put in place a placeholder for county manager if we were to move forward with that position. And so he was instructed to put that into the budget.
Okay, that just solves half of it. Him being instructed to put it in might take away the self-serving nature that we see it in.
Who instructed him?
But the second,
Board of County Commissioners, sir.
but the second part would be, if that's how it came about, then you shouldn't be selling the position as it's not going to cost the county any money because it's already in there. It's still a new thing that is being added. We could have gone to the end of the year and not have to spend that. So it was costing the county something that we hadn't spent the previous year. You can't play it both sides. He says he strategically analyzed fund balances so they know how much money they actually have. Audit does not support this. He implemented policies and procedures with emphasis on creating a better environment for employees. The audit states there are no internal control procedures. Kelly Camper stated that out-of-cycle check procedures do not exist, as Lynn mentioned before. It is unclear to us, even after repeated questioning of people, who and how many people have check writing authority. Braden Wilson's resume also included application for an MBA degree that he said was needed for the job, but was to be earned while serving as county manager. So he didn't have the MBA degree that he needed to even start the job. Was it to be paid for by the county? Did Braden Wilson's resume current include specific qualifications for a county manager position? Well, Let's look at that. Have it here. I'm gonna let you guys pass one and pass it down. I'm passing around his resume for you to look yourself. And I'm gonna let you be the judge of that. The other thing that came out of the transcript that was very interesting was Braden didn't feel like he even needed the county manager position, he even needed to be a competitive position. He felt like you guys could just create the position and then promote him into the position. This would prevent a lot of public scrutiny, and this would create a lot of opportunities for less competition. In fact, he felt that it was a promise that this was something that needed to happen. Brady sees the county manager also as the county CEO. Honestly, I did too. You guys were going to be basically impotent. The only thing that county manager left you to do was to be the policymakers in the county. That's a lot of power to put into one individual who has a hospitality degree. Braden assumed that once he became county manager, Lisa Bivens would be promoted to his existing position. Please note this is June 29. And he's confident of it to the point that he talks to Lisa about it, that he had already talked to Lisa about it. I have more to say, but I'm gonna let Nadine come up and talk about the next board, which is a continuation. These are the observations from the executive session as found in the transcript. I believe some of the papers will be publishing that transcript if they haven't already. Any information that we do present today will be on the Sentinel's website, and it can be found there. So anybody who's listening in on this, we have a lot more handouts to hand out, and that's where you'll be able to find them. You want this up? Or do you want the next one? And I believe, you have a question?
Just a real quick question, Joy, Nadine. And Lynn, excellent presentation, excellent analysis, David Lutz. But one thing that is really concerning to me, and something I heard you say, and I've already brought it up previously, that check that was handed to him that afternoon had a stamped signature on it.
Yes.
Number one, that stamp should not be easily accessible. And whoever stamped it, that's forgery, unless Kevin takes claim to stamping that check. And Kelly's signature, is it authentic or not, is the question. So, and even that, there is no process in place, but I am livid regarding that check and forgery happening. That's a felony. Someone needs to go to jail. My prior industry that I referred to earlier, I'd be in jail. So I have a problem.
Okay, I hear you.
Thank you. I want it looked into.
Also, I believe that these boards are already available online for people who are watching at home. All right, so we have some conclusions.
Speak loudly, Nadine.
Okay, I thought I was.
I know. Everybody.
Talk like you talk to me.
Okay.
Shout.
Conclusions and questions. So we came to some conclusions, and we do have questions. And with citizens who are listening or will listen, you can have your own questions too. Maybe they'll be the same, maybe they'll be different. And you can come up with different conclusions, maybe. All right. So the June 29, 2023 executive session was held prior to posting the county manager job description and soliciting other applicants. But we want to know, was Braden Wilson essentially already selected as the county manager? Number two, what qualified Braden Wilson to be Director of Human Resources and Finance, especially as it pertains to accounting? we can reference this again. This is our audit, okay? The BS degree, he had a BS degree in hospitality management. And it focuses on tourism, culinary arts, and event planning to include business practices, marketing, and ethics of the industry. The Director of Finance requires a BS in accounting as a minimum plus previous experience. And you might look at his resume and see if he's got that. The outstanding audit findings of previous years were not corrected by Braden Wilson. And in fact, additional findings accrued during Braden's employment to the point that this year's audit had to be qualified. And then qualified means what? Not
Qualified means that there are findings that question the financial statements,
okay, so the financial
of
statements,
the accuracy of the financial.
yeah, they're not accurate, okay. So the outstanding audit findings have not been corrected while under Kevin Day's purview. And in fact, there are more outstanding findings since his time overseeing the finance department, as reflected in this year's qualified audit than prior to his overseeing the department. So those are, now our last question here is, what were the qualifications of the other applicants for county manager? We really want to know, because the next executive session that we have requested, we are not allowed to see names and information about those people. Those will be redacted from the transcript. So we are asking if possibly there are some other people in the listening audience that did apply for the position and would want to contact us and let us know if they had qualifications for this position.
I have a quick question regarding the qualified notion of this audit, and maybe Lynn can help as well, or the BOCC could help. Since it's qualified, does that incur any expense to the county? Do we get fined for not having complete or accurate audits? Or is that just something that just kind of push forward and wait till y'all get it back? Or is there some type of fee or fine for failure to do that?
I'll answer that, Dave.
Thanks.
First of all, the big expense comes in the extra cost that the auditors charge. Because it took them considerable time, and audits are not cheap.
No.
Okay,
I understand.
now, if you don't correct them, the state steps in. Now, the state doesn't necessarily fine you, but the state can take over the county. We don't want that. We don't want the state in our knickers at all. We want to get these things corrected, and when the state auditors, the auditors are going to go back to the state, and they're going to tell them, we have to show that we've corrected these deficiencies. We need to do that today. Sooner than later, we want to get them corrected. We do not want the state in our knickers at all.
So Lynn, the way I understand it is the state's gonna interact with the people we're paying as our auditors. for
That's
Custer
exactly
County.
right.
And I understand what they cost, because I come from the financial
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
So, and it, so therefore, the fact that this has been going on with someone that, well, I don't need to say anything. It should be obvious to everyone here and everyone listening. Thank you.
I've got one more here and.
You want to go, or do you want me to have one more thing, but we can
Oh,
go
no,
in
no,
here?
no, I thought you were going after Nadine and, or that's it. Okay, good, thanks. Perfect, yeah.
You know what? I'm going to two ideas. Probably the commissioners. One of the questions that arises, at least to me, during this whole process, is if you're gonna go to the effort of trying to find out the facts, seems like there's one question out there. It's just begging to be asked, but hasn't. And that is, so why was it so important for the county manager position to be created? The county manager position formed a non-elected administrative arm of the government that further separates the citizens from the control of the county, from the counties. The county manager would run the county. The county manager position was untouchable and all powerful. We elect our commissioners to oversee our county and its employees so that we know they are working for us, not against us. Interjecting an administrator in this case, a county manager, that strips the power away from the commissioners, which means our voice is stripped away. It also means it's created a great contact point for the state to interfere with what the commissioners may even want for our county, because now the state directly responds, talks, and communicates with the county manager. Why is that important? Well, right now, POLIS is attempting to remove planning and zoning at the local level and place it at the state level. Why? Say they want to address affordable housing. Let that sink in. The state running this county. He also wants to take away all private property rights, and passing H is the next step towards that effort. And thirdly, there is a group that wants to take all of our guns and has decided that every single legislative session, they're going to introduce 5 bills until that is accomplished. You're probably thinking, what does this have to do with the county manager position, Joy? You are getting off track. Well, actually, it all ties together. Our current structure allows us to have a voice. The county manager structure does not allow us to have a voice. It places one person in charge of the county, one person who has the authority to reprimand the commissioners to stay in their lane and create policy only. It means the county manager is the point person for the state, Denver. Remember what I just told you they were trying to do? And one huge area the county manager would be responsible for is disaster or emergency response. What happened during COVID? Across the nation and in this county is a huge power grab, an acceleration of government control. We stood the test. We tried to go against it, and we did in many ways. Based on this audit, we have no idea where all the funds have gone. There are people in this county who want our voices stifled. Former Commissioner Flower and Acting Commissioner Day, through our research, through many articles, many tapes, many transcripts, have often commented there's no one knows how to run things as well as they do. Kevin Day, you have basically said in the past that you're not interested in the citizens' comments.
I would like to differ on that, but go ahead.
If in fact, the Custer County BOCC and County Manager Policy Manual were still in effect, I am not sure the group of citizens you see presenting here today would have been able to happen. You see, the proposed restructuring also gave the sole authority of authorizing agenda items to the chairman. That would be you. And Kevin, you haven't been in favor of this investigation the whole way. In fact, Leonard Rigo and I met with Kevin, Commissioner Day, last week to tell him about our findings, see his response, and prevent him from being blindsided today when we present these. He said he was not going to let this investigation interfere with BOCC meetings anymore. Interfere? After presenting Kevin with all this, we asked him if he regretted hiring Braden Wilson for county manager. Lynn asked you that earlier. I'm not going to ask you to say it again. But your answer was you don't regret it.
Correct. I'll answer it again.
He continued, the reason his severance package was what it was because he thought it might put the brakes on firing Braden Wilson and maybe give them, he said, because we thought it might put the brakes on firing Braden Wilson and maybe give them reason to try it for 6 months.
Correct.
Folks, we have looked at 2 sessions, executive sessions. The first executive sessions, which is actually the one I presented today, January 29, was about Braden making a presentation to why he is the best person to hire as county manager. Honestly, the second session was about managing us. It was about how you had to get things done in order to get this by us and have him approved that day. We have listened to recordings of regular sessions, and there is only one executive session left that we'd like to listen to. We also have great confidence that it's not going to add anything to the comment I'm about to make. And that's that unless that recording discusses the reason or motive that I just stated about trying to put the brakes on firing Braden, then Flower and Day colluded without Candace's input to put Braden in as county manager. And they colluded outside of any of these meetings because we have no evidence it was discussed in any of the meetings.
And there was none discussed outside of meetings either. I believe you're up, Matt.
Thank you. There's some, I think some inaccuracies in some of the things that Ms. Anderson said, and I need to correct them right up front so that I don't forget about them. I want to be sure that I get that covered. And again, my name is Matt Miles. And first thing I want to do is I'm not going to use the word we. There's no we here, it's just me, I don't represent anybody, I don't work for anybody, I don't counsel anybody, I don't speak for anybody, I speak for me, Matt Miles, for my First Amendment right. Now, let me go down to where is it? The key accomplishment.
Middle of the board.
I think it's on this one. Successful software conversion. Audit does not support this. I beg to differ with that statement. Totally, I differ with it. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because today you put Braden Wilson in charge. It was under your watch to set the software in this county up. And he set it up so that he could request a check, so that he could approve a check, and so that he could print a check. So I would suggest that the software conversion was perfectly done for Mr. Braden Wilson's situation and position for this reason. When he determined that he wanted to do an audit of the high sheriff in this county, all he had to do was say, you know, I need to do me an audit of the high sheriff and request, approve, and print a check to give to an investigator or an investigation of the high sheriff. Mr. Cantor, did you know he was doing that?
No.
Did you know he was doing that, Mr. Day?
Yes,
You gave him permission.
there were issues at the sheriff's department and there was an investigation by a third party done.
Did you discuss it with the remainder of the commissioners in an executive session?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because I was just made aware that there were issues at the sheriff's office, and I believe that was conveyed to the other two commissioners as well.
Was that $10,000 for that investigation?
I could not answer that question.
Do we have a copy of that investigator's report?
I believe that investigation is still ongoing.
Does the county have a copy of the report? Has a report been generated?
I believe that investigation is still ongoing, sir.
Now, audit does not support this. Successful software conversion. That software conversion was perfectly successful. And why was that? And everyone here knows what I'm getting ready to say. That Mr. Wilson was able, after he was relieved of his position, to walk right over to the county finance office and ask the young lady who you didn't see was trained, who nobody's trained, nobody's helped her to do a job, ask that young lady, Ms. Bivens, to give him a check for however many thousands of dollars that was, without anybody approving it, requesting it, or printing it, but Ms. Bivens. That was a real successful conversion. From Mr. Wilson's perspective, of course it was. He had it exactly like he wanted in this county, running it. And he was not elected to run it. He should have never been running it. He had no qualifications to run it. He had nothing to run it. And you were not supervising him, Mr. Day. And it was under your watch and you were supposed to supervise him. Okay, I think that's about what I've got as far as corrections. I'm sure there are others that I didn't have a chance to write down that needed to be corrected. But here's what I want to do. I want to go back, sit back and logically look at what has occurred in this county over the course of now around 3 years. First, there was a dumping of carcasses on the Indian reservation or next door to the Indian reservation south of the county. My understanding is they complained twice to the person that was in the position as the health director of the county that they wanted that stopped. They wanted that dumping stopped because it was fouling this reservation, so forth. Nothing was done here until the Indians said, we're going to get with Denver and get it stopped. And it was stopped by Denver. That was a failure to follow the law on behalf of this commission. It was a gross failure to follow the law. And I also recall, I guess it was in 2020 when I first got involved in some of the county commission meetings. And there was a huge argument over how we were going to shut this county down. There were employees of the county going into various businesses, screaming at them. I told you, you couldn't have this many people in this business. I'm going to fine you if you don't get them out right now. And I told this commission that that was illegal, that it could not be done, that federal law did not permit that. And I brought the federal cases to the meeting with me. And I was told by one of the commissioners, I don't care about those federal cases. That's in another state. That was a failure to follow the law by this commission. That was inappropriate and unacceptable. Now, let me go ahead and fast forward some to the elections we're talking about. Everybody remembers that. That was a big convoluted situation. There was a recall election with Mr. Flower, one of the commissioners, and that recall was allowed to go on and on and on. There were challenges to that recall, supposedly. They were not done under oath. They were not done according to the law. And there was an inquisition, if you will, to allow that recall to go on and on and on. And ultimately, there was a determination that no, there weren't enough signatures on the petition. That culminated in a lawsuit. And the court told this county that you failed to follow the law, county, that recall should go forward. That was inappropriate and unacceptable. Those signatures weren't under oath on that petition to those objections. Anybody could have looked at it instantly and seen they weren't under oath, and that thing should have been shut down. Instead, there were lawsuits and everything else went on over that. Unacceptable. It was unacceptable. Now, let me go ahead and get to the Wilson situation and the county manager. I've got some printouts here. And I don't have a lot of these. I know.
You need more?
We'll get it. I guess I'm one short there. Maybe I've got it hidden there.
That one there's not, no. Didn't need to be.
Yeah, don't need. What this is that I've just handed out, and I've got a few things to hand out here, not the whole packet. I think that's got it. There's a few more. I'll put them right here in this chair if anybody wants that. That is a section of the Colorado Open Records Act. So what that is. I've handed to the commission the entire packet. And this is really is significant from the standpoint that it looks like there are a lot of pages to it, but they're really not. The ones that govern how this commission was supposed to operate and how it's supposed to operate. That is in connection with the county manager and how it's supposed to operate regarding other matters is simple and straightforward. And it is this: the public's business is the public. It's the public's business and it's to be conducted in public. And that's all that says. I don't know how many of y'all have ever read this, but it's really pretty straightforward, the way it describes what you're supposed to do. Now, let me go back to that June 29th executive session. It was obvious, is obvious to me, that the sole purpose of that executive session was to pre-select Braden Wilson as the county manager. It was obvious. And I'd debate that with anyone from a careful, close review of that executive session, that the purpose was anything other than that. And we're just going to promote him in to the position of running the county. And Mr. Kanda vehemently objected to what was going on. And what is interesting is if you look at what Mr. Kanda said about the process and why it was improper and had to be stopped, was because he said, look, if we're going to cede the control of the county to someone, then we gotta have the public involved in this, because we're elected to control the county. And that's at 3.5. 3.5 is that section, that's that one page I handed out. And what that section says is very simple. There's got to be a search committee of a state public body or local public body that establishes job search goals, writes a job description, sets up deadlines for application, requirements for applicants, selection procedures, and the time frame for appointing or employing a chief executive officer of an agency, authority, institution, or other entity at an open meeting. Not a secret meeting, an open meeting. And Mr. Kanda, without ever having seen that statute, Commissioner Kanda, just about tracked that wording in this statute without knowing anything about it, because he knew that what was going on was not right. It was inappropriate. Intuitively, he knew it was not right. The same commissioner that Mr. Hedberg is accused and has tried to have arrested for trying to stop that check. That same check that you said, Mr. Day, well, you know, Mr. Kanda, if you wanted to stop it, you should have called an emergency meeting. You said that at that meeting. I remembered that. Now let's talk about what happened there at that secret meeting, that executive session, in complete violation of 3.5. Mr. Wilson went all through why he was the one, and why he should be selected, and how he had run the county and done all these things and so forth and so on. Well, I'm going to tell you what I got here. And this happened just before. It happened just before you had the meeting down here in Wetmore on August the 16th, when you appointed him. On July 13th, 2023, about a month before, is when the state EEOC came out with the investigation involving Ms. Jackie Hoppy. Y'all all remember that? I'm looking at it, July 13th, 2023. And let's see what happened here. What did Mr. Wilson do in connection with that? One of the things here is Ms. Anderson handed down, and I got it right here. I made a note on it. It says that the county manager, Mr. Wilson, was going to consult with the county attorney to achieve compliance with federal and state statutes. That's what it said here he was going to do, because he wrote this up himself. He was going to do this. Let's take a look at this thing that came from the state regarding Ms. Hobby. What did he do? You read it real carefully. I just handed it out. He tried to help Mr. Flower cover it up. He didn't try to follow the law. He didn't go to Denver and report it like he should have. He was involved in a cover-up. That's unacceptable. He didn't follow the law. That's one reason he wasn't fit for this position. he couldn't follow the law. Now, if you look at, again, that statute in conjunction with that, the June 29th executive session. My understanding is you came out of the meeting on June 29th and voted 2-1 to have Mr. Wilson appointed the county manager. Is that correct or not?
That is correct.
That is correct. And then at some point, you realized that you had to have a do-over. And you tried to orchestrate a do-over. In other words, that by that time, someone had advised you about this section 3.5. And it had to be done in conformity with this law here. And so you tried to have a do-over. But you didn't follow the law. And you couldn't have followed the law the way you did it for a very simple reason. You had already pre-selected him in violation of the law. And you were completely and totally tainted at that point. And the only way you could have fixed this thing was to stop and have a do-over with an appointed committee, all the things that you're required to do in 3.5. And you didn't do that because you didn't have time. The clock was ticking and you had to rush it through. You knew this election was delayed as far as you could delay it. You knew these problems were coming with this EEOC. You knew all of that. And what is really shocking is you got that report on the 13th of July and you rushed through Braden Wilson's deal on the 16th of August in this room. You rushed it through. I didn't know that existed at the time. You didn't follow the law. That's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. The entire process was totally unacceptable because you didn't follow the law. And you took an oath to follow the law. You broke your oath. You didn't do it properly. You know, the big problem with the whole situation is this. I'm gonna hand this one out, and it's in your packet, but I've got some extra ones. And I'd invite y'all to read these because they're self-explanatory. It's self-explanatory. This whole thing's self-explanatory. All you gotta do is read it. This is again part of the open records law.
Unmute.
What it says is no resolution, rule, regulation, ordinance, or formal action of a state or public body shall be valid unless taken or made at a meeting that meets the requirements of the Colorado Open Records Law. What it says is it didn't happen. It's not valid. Now, there was a lot of yelling and screaming at a recent county commission meeting by some people that are listening as to why the contract with Mr. Wilson is not valid. I don't know if it's valid or not. It's not for me to decide or determine. That's for a court to determine. Okay, what I can say though is if you didn't follow the law, then your signatures on that contract, in my opinion, are a nullity. And there is no contract with him. I don't know. It's not for me to say. That's for a court to say. That's for you to decide. That's your business, what you want to do with that. But I will say this about it. There is no question that that check could have been stopped. Could have been stopped and should have been stopped and would have been stopped. Wouldn't have been paid, and we've been in a completely different situation or opinion or position than we're in right now if that had been done. If the bank hadn't been ordered to pay that check. Because if it had been done that way, when Mr. Canada tried to stop it, then it would have been Mr. Wilson trying to get his money. And all of this stuff could have been done slowly, methodically, and carefully, and you could have figured it all out. But instead, it was a huge, huge rush to get that check to him and get it in his bank so he's got the money. That's unacceptable. It's obvious to anybody looking at this situation. It should have never happened. And, you know, the worst thing about it all, the worst thing is this criminal complaint that someone in this county has filed against Mr. Canada. Yes, this is the complaint. I would suggest, in my opinion, that crossed the line. That complaint crossed the line. And I would suggest, I don't care if you are a public figure, if you assert, if you state or say that that person has, that public figure or official has committed a crime when they have not, that you cross the line. That's called, if you speak it, that's slander. If you print it, that's libel. That complaint was inappropriate under these circumstances. No one, I don't think, would ever agree with that. And anyone that goes around accusing people of a crime, I don't care if they're a public official or not. You better have your facts straight and you better know what you're talking about. So what we'd ask is that this commission read the law and follow the law. That's all we're asking. Just follow the law. It's very simple. Look at what it says and do what it says. And I don't think there's any real question in my mind that what happened with this deal with Mr. Wilson. It didn't follow the law. Statute was too clear. You tainted yourself when you did it the first time in the executive session, and you couldn't cure the taint that you put on yourself without going back, having a search committee, and doing it properly. And why is that? Because if it had been done properly, who's to say Mr. Wilson's name would have ever come out of the search committee at all? That's why there's a taint about it. It couldn't have been removed unless you just specifically followed the letter of the law.
Thank you. We'll give you a chart.
Pardon me?
We're gonna give you a placard.
What you mean? Oh, I don't need to.
Okay.
Nah, it changed during the middle of it. Somebody else can use this if they want, though. And you know what? I made it just for you, Mr. Parker. I know you need it.
My name is Bill Parker, and I want to say right at the outset, I'm speaking just for myself, not as a member of any group or citizens committee or anything else. And I first want to address you, Mr. Day. I want to believe
that you're an honorable and sincere person. And that you had a sincere belief that hiring a county manager would benefit the operations of the county. I want to believe that. We have a lot of problems in the operation of the county that need solutions. And they need them as soon as possible. And I think that's been very clearly pointed out by the people here today, as well as by the county auditors, for crying out loud. And speaking again, just for myself, I don't know whether this county needs a county manager or would benefit from having a county manager. If the commissioners feel collectively that they're not up to the job of managing county operations, maybe a county manager would be a benefit. I don't know. You're closer to it than I am. And let's be honest, a lot of counties in this state have county managers. Someday, if not now, when we continue to grow, you probably would benefit from having a county manager. But this process, Kevin, somehow you got your head turned on this thing. I don't know how that happened. But this process was so flawed at every step along the way that it's hard to know where to start criticizing it. I mean, first of all, disrespecting the public and not making them part of a process that's going to fundamentally restructure the operations of county government, and hiring someone as important as a county manager. That's just absurd, quite honestly. There was no reason to go down this road that you went down. And I'm not going to speak to the other commissioner who is no longer here and what his motives were. But I want to believe you're a sincere and honest person. I think you are. But you're wrong on this one. You did a bad thing. And honestly, Kevin, there's no dishonor in recognizing you were wrong and apologizing. And I think we're all owed that. And if we're going to hire a county manager, let's do it the right way. There are probably many people out there who could come in here and help us manage this county, and who are qualified, experienced county managers. Braden Wilson was not one of them. There's just no way. He didn't know the scope of the job, he didn't have the educational background, and he didn't have the experience. And why, with all those check marks against him, you would sit here even today and say you'd do the same thing again. I just don't understand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else on your guys' presentation?
That ends our presentation.
Thank you. Are there any additional items of business?
None from me.
So we have these audit findings, and we do definitely have to get those corrected. Lisa Bivens, the finance director, has been communicating fervently with Sam DiNardo, our auditor, and getting some direction. She's talked to Lena Rigo as well. And we are starting to gain some traction in correcting these audit findings and going through those. Unfortunately, it's also budget time, and it's the two don't align very well, so it's going to be a very arduous task for her. So we may have to we may have to ask Sam DiNardo to provide an accountant or something like that to give us the assistance we need to get through these next couple months and get these findings and make these corrections so that and then policies and internal controls in place so that we can come and have a good audit and turn it in by the deadline of July 31st of next year. So I guess that's all I have to say on that.
You know,
I would add,
You go ahead, you add.
I'll add something and you can have it. We do have a meeting scheduled with Sam DiNardo to go over this audit as well next week, I believe so. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and I agree. I wrote it down. As a matter of fact, to point out at the end of the meeting, we do have opportunities. We've got to fix the deficiencies that are beyond just the county manager. The county manager pointed out that we don't have the right policies in place, the procedures, the controls, and the plans, those kinds of things that are critical to a normal organization's execution of their business, and that's necessary. We do need to meet to do that. We've got a meeting coming up, and maybe after the audit, we can have another, and I would not call it a workshop. It would have to be a special meeting so that we can have a meeting that actually gets decisions made and have discussion. I really appreciate the findings. I had no idea of the depth that you guys went to, and I appreciate all the effort that you guys did. We would have had to pay $100,000 for somebody to actually do this professionally, probably. I don't know. That's quite an investigation at the point. And I want to thank you for doing that. So I agree with Lucas and you too, Kevin, that we do need to get together now. And let's go do the work of the citizens for them. So thank you.
Okay, and that does bring us to our public comment. The agenda says there's a time limit. We remove that time limit so that now is I will open it up to public comment. James.
Sure. Well, I sat here and listened to this whole presentation and found it very interesting. Most interesting thing is I don't think I've ever seen a more complete and vicious attack on individuals by a group in a long time. So I thought I'd say something so that I got included in that group of being attacked. At any rate, the committee's not committee, the group of concerned citizens presentation would serve well as an episode of Perry Mason, I would guess. And Mr. Miles would be excellent as the defense attorney in that. Because rather than the prosecution, the defense attorney gets to expound on perceived evidence to ensure that it is viewed in a certain light. Many of the things that were said really made me embarrassed for the interactions of the citizen of the county and the board of supervisors because of the nature of the discussion. But that's my own personal response, and I'll get over it, I'm sure. The bottom line to me is the issue ultimately boils down to who people want and who people don't want, and whether or not what is wanted is good for the county as a whole or good for a portion of the county. And just as an example of that, I'll roll back to the recall election. Now, it was stated in here that the people overwhelmingly said that Tom Flower needed to be out of office after that recall election, regardless of the circumstances, which I will take issue with anyway. But that statement is not true. The margin of error of victory or defeat, I guess, was 36, I think, if I remember correctly. Kelly can correct me. That came from a total of approximately 54% of the voting population of the county, which means that roughly 27% of the voting population of the county supported that recall. That is not a majority. That is a minority. And minority rule that against the wishes of the majority is also has a term. I think it was one of the speakers early on who talked about the BOCC doing what they saw fit for the good of the county was Marxism. Minority rule at the expense of the majority is a different ism, and I'm not going to use it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was for Dorothy's proposal and how that got turned into 1984. I'm talking about the book, not the year. The Planning and Zoning Commission and office has an obligation to enforce the zoning regulation that you guys, not you guys as commissioners, not individually, you guys developed and proposed to control the growth of the county in various ways, including the growth of short-term rentals. Okay, that's all well and good. Planning and zoning has to ensure that that resolution is followed by serving the citizens to go through the process, as well as ensuring that they, when they don't, they are so held to account. Dorothy, who is the head of your zoning office, who theoretically you trust now to run her office the way it should be, has come up with a solution to easing the department's ability to gather data to ensure that the resolution is being followed. Makes perfect sense. It's like using Microsoft Access, you know, create your own, have somebody create your own database and just use it, and it takes no time at all. One person can find stuff out. Makes perfect sense. It got turned into Big Brother is looking into our bedrooms to see what it is we're doing. I mean, that is poppycock. And anybody who thinks that is very paranoid. The other thing there is this whole county manager operation. One of the things we said, oh, we ought to let the department heads do what they should do. Well, here's Dorothy doing what she should do, and you're shooting it down. She budgeted the money, she came up with a solution, she proposed it in, and you two guys say, no, you're not good enough to do your own job. When you say that you're going to let them do their job, why don't you just get rid of all the county employees, hire new people that meet your criteria, and they can do their job? I mean, obviously you can't have growth into the job because you don't tolerate it. To wit, the complaints against Braden, whether he was educationally appropriate for the position, you knew him for 2.5 years and how he did his job. And it was thought that he was good enough, but no, he's not good enough, because people look in the back and say a degree in hospitality shouldn't be looked at as anything more than a degree in culinary arts, shall we say. And I'm not jumping on any chefs in the room. But anyway, my whole point being, I'm just trying to rattle on for as long as I can to show you the ill-advised lack of a limit on the amount of time that somebody talks, because I can go on for quite some time if you want me to. And I'm sure nobody here does. But it just, it was just very discouraging to see folks saying the solution to Dorothy's issue was to have neighbors and the public spy on their neighbors, turn them in, and hide back in their little home, hiding from the repercussions or whatever. I mean, that is so 1984, and I don't think anybody wants the results of that solution. And okay, I will just shut up because I'm sure I'm sitting on a island in the middle of the Pacific right now.
I'm gonna go to Lisa Frank first and then
I'm sorry, who?
Lisa Frank has her hand up
Oh, okay.
online and then I'll go to you, Matt.
Thank you.
Hi, Lisa Frank here.
Wait.
Hi, Lisa Frank. I am just going to address James, and the point I think that the people are trying to make is that, I don't know, maybe you don't know that your phones are listening to you. Your smart TV is listening to you. Data is being gathered all the time. We have helicopters flying over, looking at our minerals. So for you to say that we are paranoid is a little naive. And this is a small county. I've lived here 27, going on 28 years. And it's always been friendly and neighborly. It's not like we're 1984 spying on anyone. But if we're talking about making sure that an Airbnb or a short-term rental is legitimate, they've come through the process, since we only have 8 additional each year. That's a small number. I don't know how many are current. That if there were a list somewhere that citizens could check and say, wow, my neighbor is renting out his place, but he hasn't come in and done the proper things to do that. And maybe I'll go talk to him as well and say, do you really know that? It's always been neighborly. We don't honk when someone stops in the middle of the road to talk. We still have a flashing 4-way stop in town. So please don't try to make this bigger than it is. We're saying, why do we need more computer stuff? We've had enough problems with machines, with computers used for voting. And I know you disagree with that, James. I know you do. And we've taken people out of the equation. And I think that's what's missing in this county anymore, is getting to know each other, talking to one another. Instead, we go to a machine and we pull up data and then we analyze data. I think it's just that, I don't know. I'm missing the neighborly part of this. And that's all I want to say. And so I'll say goodbye or thank you.
Thank you. Matt.
The county's books are out of balance. That's a pretty simple situation, or not simple, but it's a pretty simple, straightforward observation of the problem. It's your department, Mr. Day. Ms. Bivens, I think she's kind of asking for help. She's looking for help. This thing's above her, in my opinion. I don't see how she can grow into this situation. We're gonna have to pay staff accountants a lot of money. I would suggest that there needs to be somebody in that department, if Ms. Bivens will agree, it has a degree in accounting, the requisite qualifications, that maybe can help bring her along and help her. Because the way it sits right now, suppose she gets in a car wreck, heaven forbid. Does anybody know how to print the checks and pay the people? Do they? I mean, I would suggest ought to be at least 2 people trained on that software. That when it's time to print the checks, if something happens to one of them, they can do it. Has that been thought of? And I would suggest that this situation in this county has found itself in with unfunded mandates and the explosion of stuff that's going on here. We need to get somebody in that position that's trained and qualified to do it, and maybe bring Ms. Bivens along, where she's backup, and maybe if that person retires, then she can run the department. That's what we're talking about. And to try to make it a Democrat versus Republican issue has nothing to do with anything or whatever the attempt is. It's just, we got to get the people in the county trained and get the internal controls set up so that this county can be run properly. And it's your department, Mr. Day. What's the plan? What's the plan? I haven't heard it.
Yeah, I got another hand online. 2 of them now. Jordan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to address you because that's what we're supposed to do here in public comment. Thanks for everything you've done. I appreciate it. I also want to thank Lucas for listening in on all this stuff. He's at least make sure that he hears everything. We're the oldest county, or maybe the second oldest by median age in the United States. You don't get an endless supply of people that are going to be coming here anymore. So all the people in the room that decided to scapegoat Braden Wilson because you read George Grimelick, you should be ashamed. Every single one of you should have your head bowed down in shame. Several of these people aren't even citizens here. You took somebody that worked hard. There's issues in this county that needed to be, fixed. And instead of doing any of that, you decided to scapegoat him. Now, he'll be all right. He's going to move on because he's actually quite talented at what he does. But now our county's at a bit of a loss. But the scapegoating, the dragging through the mud of that young man's name is absolutely disgusting. So hang your head all in shame with this entire little committee and realize that the reason this place isn't friendly anymore is because of these types of scapegoating actions that take place on a regular basis. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Richard.
Yes, sir. This is Rick Dahl, and I'm also here with my wife, Christy. I have two things I'd like to add. One, I would like to know, under the government rules, because I've worked with government for 40 years, anytime a hire happens, there's guidelines. So these guidelines mean you have to interview so many people, you have to pick the best qualified candidate, et cetera, et cetera. But what I don't hear is how many candidates were there? When were they interviewed and who interviewed them? That would be my question. And then my second comment, I've been watching these meetings now for a couple of months. And what I keep hearing is the same thing over and over and over. Where is the training? Because HR should be making sure, and I don't care if you're a commissioner or a janitor, there's training, and that training is supposed to be done. It's supposed to be recorded. And maybe if that training had been done, we wouldn't have the issue we're having today, because people would know I cannot do that, or whatever the case might be. And again, I keep hearing the same thing, no matter what the subject is, over these last few meetings. Training. I don't know what your answer is to that, but maybe HR needs to be looking into training that is completed and done by all accountable, because that's HR's job. That's what I got to say on that.
Okay, thank you. I would comment to your first question. There were 8 applicants, 3 of which were interviewed.
Why did we not interview all 8?
Stephen Wilcox.
Sorry.
Let me go ahead and answer that.
No.
We vetted the 8 applicants. We had decided on 4 to interview. And 1 pulled their name from contention at that point, and so 3 were interviewed. That is why. Go ahead, sir.
I would just like to stand up and thank all the people here who put in so much hard work for shining the light of truth on what's been going on here. And I hope that the results of this will result in the county being improved.
Thank you. Anything else?
I just wanted to share, Nadine Peters. I just wanted to share something real quickly. This was a prayer request I submitted yesterday at our ladies' Bible study. Pray for our Custer County leaders who have purpose, passion, and integrity while bravely choosing to do their jobs well.
Thank you for that. Seeing no others. I will adjourn this meeting at 12 p.m.
Right on the money. Thanks, everybody.